You're on your own now. We've done enough. Those were my father's exact words on the day I graduated college. No warmth. No celebration. Just those 7 words that felt like a slap more than a send-off. I stood there, diploma still in my hand, dressed in my cap and gown, watching both my parents already turning toward their luxury car like the ceremony was just another box checked. My mother handed me a thin envelope. Inside was a single check, $500, labeled in cold handwriting, final support payment, good luck. There was no, we're so proud of you. No, you did it. Not even a goodbye hug, and yet, I wasn't surprised. My parents were the type who believed money equaled love, and once they decided I was grown, the money stopped flowing and so did their attention. They were rich. Not just comfortable, but the type of rich where they had weekend memberships at 3 different country clubs, a live-in chef who prepped their dogs' meals, and matching luxury sedans for casual errands. I grew up in a mansion with a home theater, indoor pool, and more bathrooms than people. But once I graduated, all that vanished, like a rug pulled out from under my feet. You need to learn the real world, my dad had said flatly. Struggle builds character. You'll thank us later. I didn't argue. I just nodded because, deep down, I'd already prepared myself for this. A week later, I was dragging my suitcase up 4 flights of stairs to a dingy walk-up apartment in the city. No elevator. No air conditioning. A creaky radiator that hissed more than it heated. And 3 roommates, all strangers I met online, crammed into a 2-bedroom space with doors that barely locked and a kitchen that smelled like old onions and desperation. That night, I sat on a mattress on the floor, no bed frame, just the mattress, and stared at the cracked ceiling. I thought, this is what they wanted. For me to crawl back. For me to fail and come begging, but I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. Sure, I could have called and asked for help. They would have said, we told you so, 100 times first, and then maybe offered crumbs of support if I bent far enough, but something inside me snapped that night, not in a broken way, in a woken up way. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their handouts. I had my brain. I had time, and more importantly, I had nothing left to lose. So, I decided then and there, if I was going to rise, I was going to do it without them. No safety net. No trust fund, just grit. While they played tennis and sipped imported wine, I was Googling how to make money online without a degree. While they vacationed in Italy, I was printing out resumes and applying for part-time gigs at every cafe within walking distance, and while they laughed over brunch with their country club. No safety net. No trust fund. No backup plan, just me, and a mountain of student debt. So, I hustled morning shifts, waitressing at a 24-hour diner, pouring coffee for grumpy commuters and cleaning up pancake syrup from sticky booths. Afternoons. Unpaid intern at a tech startup, answering emails and taking notes in meetings I barely understood. Evenings into midnight, freelancing online, ghostwriting blog posts, managing small business social media accounts, editing videos for YouTubers. I'd never meet. I didn't sleep much. I didn't go out. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself, but something strange happened in the middle of all that chaos. I learned, from the diner, I learned how to deal with people, rude ones, nice ones, and the ones who'd tip you 3% and still expect a smile. From the startup, I picked up how marketing worked, email funnels, ad campaigns, branding, conversion rates. I listened, took notes, and Googled everything I didn't understand. From freelancing, I built actual skills, writing copy, designing Instagram posts, editing short-form videos, managing clients. After about a year, I realized something. I didn't just know how to work, I knew how to sell. So, I put all that knowledge together and launched a small e-commerce store selling custom-designed productivity planners. At first, it was just a side hustle. I designed the covers myself using free software, printed low-cost batches, and shipped orders from my living room floor. But here's the thing, I didn't just wait for customers to find me. I took those marketing lessons I learned from my internship and my freelance gigs, and I ran Facebook and Instagram ads, small at first. Just $5 a day, then I doubled down. Every time I made a sale, I reinvested. I split test my ads, tracked customer data, improved the website. I answered every email like it was life or death. I studied what people were clicking, what they ignored, and what made them buy. Within 6 months, I had consistent daily orders. By year 2, I was making over $150,000 in annual revenue, all from my laptop. By year 4, my brand was pulling in over $1 million. No office. No staff. Just remote contractors and systems I'd built from scratch. I didn't tell my parents. Not because I was bitter, not really, but because I didn't need to. They thought they had taught me a lesson by cutting me off, but the real lesson was mine. Sometimes being left alone is the greatest gift, because it forces you to find your power. ***. 4 years after my parents cut me off, I walked into Lexington Bank, not with a check to cash, but but with a name they couldn't ignore. Asterisk it was a bright Tuesday morning. Sunlight hit the marble floors of the bank's executive building like something out of a movie. Sleek glass walls. Polished wood. The kind of place where silence was a symbol of power. Asterisk this wasn't a regular branch. Asterisk this was the private client tower. Asterisk where wealthy legacy families held meetings over imported coffee and portfolios were handled behind gold-trimmed doors. Asterisk Lexington Bank had built its entire brand on exclusivity, generational wealth, heritage, and boardroom handshakes. It was also, not coincidentally, my parents' bank. The one where my father played golf with directors and bragged about how tough love builds strong kids. Only this time, I wasn't walking in behind him. I had an appointment on the 17th floor. Asterisk not as a client, asterisk not as an observer, asterisk but as the lead investor in a groundbreaking fintech startup that was preparing to enter a strategic partnership with the bank. Asterisk I'd built a solid investment portfolio over the past 2 years, e-commerce, AI, and now, fintech. The company I backed had caught the attention of Lexington's innovation wing. They invited their top investors and executives to a closed-door roundtable. And I was at the center of it. Asterisk when I stepped into the boardroom, heads turned. Asterisk suits. Gray hair. Rolex watches. Asterisk these were men who had never poured their own coffee or logged into an ad account, but they looked at me like I belonged there. Asterisk and then, the moment that still replays in my mind. Asterisk the CEO of Lexington Bank, a man who once spoke to my father by first name at family events, stood up, walked over, extended his hand, and said asterisk, "Good afternoon, ma'am. It's a privilege to meet you." He said ma'am, not miss. Asterisk not young lady. Asterisk not, remind me who you're here with? It wasn't just a title, it was respect. Asterisk respect built from what I created, not who I was related to. Asterisk I smiled, shook his hand, and introduced myself without a hint of nervousness. After years of being underestimated, first by my parents, then by clients who assumed I was just another freelancer, I had finally stepped into a room where my value spoke louder than my age. Asterisk we talked shop. Strategy. Future-proof scaling models. Profit margins. I watched seasoned executives lean forward when I explained customer acquisition metrics. One of them even whispered to another asterisk, "She's sharp. Real sharp." Asterisk and in that moment, I realized something. Asterisk the very people who once would've dismissed me, who probably went to the same schools as my father, dined at the same restaurants as my mother, were now looking at me like I was the future. Asterisk and my parents? They had no idea. They didn't know their daughter, the same one they left to freeze in a tiny apartment with a busted heater, had just negotiated a seat at the table they had once tried to keep me away from. Asterisk 1 week after the Lexington Bank meeting, I attended an exclusive networking gala hosted at a luxury hotel downtown, the kind with glittering chandeliers, champagne fountains, and a guest list so refined you couldn't even buy your way in. Asterisk I was there on invitation, as one of the keynote investors for the fintech startup everyone in the room was now buzzing about. It was surreal. I wore a tailored navy suit, simple heels, and confidence like armor. Asterisk the room was full of whispers, introductions, and deal-making. Asterisk and then, asterisk a soft tap on my shoulder. Asterisk I turned around slowly, and there she was. Asterisk my mother. Asterisk she looked startled, almost unsure of what to say. Her eyes flicked from my name tag to my face, as if she was trying to confirm this was really me. Asterisk oh, we didn't expect to see you here, she said, her voice a little too soft, a little too controlled. Asterisk I raised an eyebrow but didn't answer right away. Asterisk then I saw who they were standing with. Asterisk the CEO. Asterisk the same man who had looked me in the eye just a week earlier and said ma'am with unshakable respect. Asterisk now, he was standing next to my parents, chatting casually, probably unaware of our shared history. Asterisk until asterisk he looked at me, then at them, and said with a smile asterisk, "Ah, you're her parents? What a pleasure. Your daughter's sharp, one of the youngest major partners we've ever had." The silence that followed was delicious. My mother blinked rapidly. Asterisk my father forced a weak smile, the kind he used to give when he was caught off guard but didn't want to admit it. Asterisk I said nothing. Just let the moment sink in. Asterisk then the CEO turned back to me and added asterisk, "We'd love to have you on the advisory board. I'll have my assistant reach out. We need people like you driving the future." Asterisk I nodded. Composed. Not a flicker of smugness. Asterisk I'd be honored, I said simply. Asterisk meanwhile, my parents, the same people who once said I was naive, that I'd never make it without their help, now stood silently, watching the man they admired gush about the daughter they discarded. Asterisk there was no fight. No argument. Just stillness. Asterisk my mother opened her mouth like she was about to say something, maybe apologize, maybe explain, but nothing came out. Asterisk I didn't need them to say anything. Asterisk because here, in a room full of power and prestige, my work spoke louder than their doubts ever did. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about validation. It was about becoming undeniable. And on that night, standing there in a circle of people who respected me for what I had built, not what I had inherited, I realized something deeper. The approval I used to chase from them. I didn't need it anymore. Because when the world starts calling you, ma'am, with genuine respect, the opinions of people who once doubted you start to feel very, very small. A few days after the gala, my phone rang, unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick it up. Hello? There was a pause on the other end, then I heard her voice. It's your mother, she said gently. I sat still, listening. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since the awkward run-in at the family holiday brunch where they still pretended I was figuring things out. Now, suddenly, she was calling me. Your father and we're having some financial trouble, she continued, each word more difficult for her to say. Apparently, my father had made some bad investments. A failed property deal. A misjudged crypto play. And worst of all, he'd refinanced one of their homes without telling her. The image of financial perfection they always flaunted? Crumbling. And we were wondering, maybe you could help us. Maybe look over our business and help us restructure. Her voice cracked a little when she said it. I sat there, silent for a moment, not out of anger, not even shock, but because, for the first time in my life, they needed me. The same parents who once told me, you're on your own now, who cut me off without hesitation, who thought I'd fall flat on my face, now wanted help, and not just emotional support. They wanted my expertise. I wasn't angry anymore. I had let go of that a long time ago. I had healed. I had moved on, but I had also learned one of the most important lessons of my life. Not everyone gets to return once they walk away. So I took a breath and replied, calmly, with no bitterness, I don't take on family clients. Hope you understand. Then I hung up, not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but because I had learned the most powerful thing in the world, boundaries. See, it wasn't about holding a grudge. I didn't need to prove anything to them anymore. That part of my story was already written, and I had already won, but helping them now would have meant rewriting my own rules, and I'd worked too hard to betray the woman I had become just to save the people who once let me drown. They taught me how to survive, but I taught myself how to build, how to grow, how to win, and that's what real success looks like, not flashy, not loud, not even vengeful, just powerful, quiet, unshakable. If you ask me what the best revenge is, it's not revenge at all. It's becoming someone so strong, so capable, so fulfilled, that the very people who once doubted you, now need you, and you don't need them anymore.